Okay, welcome to everyone to a special episode exploring art, technology, and storytelling. We are very excited to co-host this journey.
Today, we have the honor of welcoming Ayesha Mubarak Ali, speaking about fusion tech artist known for blending heritage, innovation, and arts that literally reaches the stars. Her projects span from Pakistan to international collaborations, including work sent to the International Space Station. Let's welcome Ayesha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Cyril and Sarah, both of you.
Ayesha, can you take us back to your first memories of making art? Was there a pivotal moment or person who sparked your passion for creativity?
So, my first memory, as far as I recall, I was always a creative kid, always enjoyed working with any kind of tangible materials, like clay, like ceramics, like, something to do with, my hands, even working with dress designing, stitching with my own hands for my dolls and stuff. So I was always a creative kid. I used to love working with different materials and just exploring beyond the limitations. If like anyone used to tell me that this is not possible, or you don't have many resources, so I used to challenge that, and I used to love giving hours and hours to something that I just had an idea and I wanted to pursue. So I think fast forward today, that thing hasn't changed. I'm still that kind of person, just doing different kinds of bigger projects now. I just have the same level of curiosity for a project. So the things that you just mentioned, doing space projects and working with technology, and keeping like a balance with traditional mediums, because I love working with paintings. I still do. Acrylic paintings is something I always go back to, not just as a hobby, but something that is almost like an escape for me as an artist. So that memory, or that curiosity for materials, curiosity for the unknown, I think that hasn't changed at all, even if I'm like adult now. So I think somehow a person remains the same. It's just like I'm so lucky to be able to explore all of that, to know that this is my safe space, this is my creative potential, and this is my gift almost, that I need to utilize every day and just keep on practicing. It's not so much about the achievements that you can achieve, or you can get by doing all of that. I think the important thing is that you're giving your time to the things that you feel is important, is your truth, and my truth is art, one way or the other. So I love doing that.
I can see you like to work with your hands, you envision something, and you basically can bring your creativity into life. So looking back to these very early days, did you have like biggest influences or specific artists you're looking at?
Okay, so for inspiration, I never used to have one inspiration. I have different inspirations for different domains, or I'm very specific with my inspirations. Let's say if I'm doing a project, for example, I did something with the combination of design and tech. So I had a very specific artist in mind. For example, I was looking at the work of Iris Van Herpen. She's one of the designer that I really, really love looking, which is a great example of how engineering, technology, 3D printing, fashion can all come together. And of course, the vision itself, because she has a very different way of a direction in her work, in her each collection. So for me, it's almost not just like fashion on the runway, but it's like technology, and it's like creating history almost, right? I had a very specific inspiration of Iris Van Herpen for my design projects or music videos as well, that I'm currently, especially working on. I'm working on a series of music videos. I'm releasing one each month, and each music video is on a different color that it's mapping. For example, in January, I did with color white, and the name of that music video was Sharing Milk. And then in February, I did with color red, because obviously February is the color of red, this Valentine's Day and everything. So, and then in March, it was Expanding Frame. And this entire collection is called Subliminal Emotions, because it's mapping emotions through color and color psychology. And again, Iris Van Herpen is a huge, huge inspiration for me. And why I'm speaking about this project in specific is because it's relevant for today's generation. It's relevant for today's technology and its flaws, its ethics, the things that it needs to bring awareness about. For example, the ethical side of AI, custom machine learning, data collection, all of these different elements I'm addressing in this series of music videos that I'm like constantly working on. This is just something that I started in 2025 from January, and I'm still like working on it. So Iris Van Harpen is a very, you say, inspiring figure for me since years now. I think when she started her journey, since then I've been like, keeping tabs on her journey. And then another artist that I really like, she's a filmmaker as well, a female filmmaker, Hito Steril. She's a German filmmaker. So I love her work because she's into experimental filmmaking, and her work is not just film, it's not mainstream, you can say mainstream filmmaking, but she looks at films as a medium that can talk about the bigger societal issues that needs to be addressed. And I think her work has a lot of layers that you need to peel every time you look at her work. So I get influenced with these kind of artists. I mean, there are so many more, but these are the two artists that I have on top of my head, just because I'm still inspired by them, and I'm working on such projects even these days. So yeah, these are great some examples that I'm looking into.
So of course, every artist has some kind of influences, but on the other side, they also bring their own personality. And then over time, you basically create your own style. You have your own journey. So how did you, for example, your personal and cultural roots like shape your artistic vision, especially as you also went in the direction digital and technological area?
So I remember when I graduated, the themes that I was interested in as an artist, and also because the way we are taught art, given that I'm a fine arts graduate with majors in new media and painting. So one was my tech major. I was double major. So one was a tech oriented major. The second was painting, which is very tangible. You have to take a paintbrush and you have to work on the canvases. So two different mediums I did my majors in. And having that combination, I remember I was so interested in representation of multiple skin tones and the way human beings are seen, the idea of identity, how self projection can be done in multiple ways. And I remember at that time in 2018, Photoshop was the only, you can say, tool for any kind of manipulation that you want to do with pictures, picture making art. And I used to push limits with Photoshop and used to get inspired by this perfect figure, especially when we talk about beauty standards, female form, how the idea of objectification came to life. And also because where I'm a Pakistani, so we have brown skin, black hair, right? But the kind of toys that I used to play with as a child, it was just like these blonde Barbie dolls, right? So I started questioning that how is that kind of psychologically bringing this another kind of, you can say, sensibility of beauty for young girls. And I only started to question that when I was in my final year for my thesis, and I was doing all of these, working with these ideas for my thesis project, for my dissertation, and of course my final project. So, and I think that's when it hit me that this is something I can really contribute to, because I was always this kind of person that I want to do something that can contribute. And if it wasn't for art, maybe I would have gone and pursued pre-medicine and became a doctor and all that, because I was always interested in human body and inspired by anatomy, psychology, all these things that I mentioned. So I think this was my point. I got interested in human body and the idea of identity, self-expression, the inside versus the outside, the public versus the personal narratives, and then also how these objects which are around us, how I gave an example of a Barbie doll. I used to have a collection of these blonde Barbie dolls which are like perfect figures. So started questioning that, and how we don't have our own representation enough for us to say that, oh, this is also a beauty standard, this is also an alternative. Now fast forward, I think things have quite changed a lot, because now diversity is there. We see representation of diversity in our films, in our media, in our art, but at that time it wasn't there. So I think this was my point why I went into art, and I was like, I really want to work with these themes and create my body of work that speaks about these societal issues.
Interesting. I want to ask you a little more personal questions. Was there a time when you realized that your own story and heritage could be powerful creative tools?
I'm not sure, because for me it was always about the bigger ideas. As I said, that I think there in art, any kind of successful art, whether it's very abstract, whether it's very subjective, I think a successful work of art is that has that personal connection for that artist, and then it is able to have that collective societal issue that the artwork is addressing. And I think that's when the artwork brings the artist to the level that we can say that, oh, this artist has actually contributed. Because if this art is just about the journey of the artist, then I don't know, to some extent I think the audience might misinterpret the artwork. So I think for me it was very important to keep a balance of both these things, and I was very conscious about this thing early on. And even now when I'm working more in like themes of spacesuit design, I've done projects in metaverse, virtual reality, experimented with all kinds of AI. Like when AI was not even there, I was working on APIs of custom APIs access that I used to get on ChatGPT, because ChatGPT wasn't public at that time, right? For my fellowships I used to have that. So I was interested in tech way back. And why was I interested in tech? You could ask me this because I was a painter. I was interested in dolls, right? I was painting all of that. So the idea was that somehow technology is going to change how we view ourselves, even with our Instagram, even with all these apps, Snapchat and TikTok and whatever. I think we live more on internet with this curated reality, like reels and then content and then stories, rather than being in the reality of the atmosphere. And I think this is how I related to technology. This is why I jumped into technology, and I was like, this is just changing the game of identity, the theme that I was so much interested in. I mean, I was reading a lot of psychologists like Jacques Lacan, and how he spoke about human being, and how when we view ourselves in a mirror as a kid, that changes something in our human mind. As a kid, when we see the mirror, it just changes something in us, especially for the first time. And that's huge, because if you apply that to how many times we see ourselves through these cameras, through these different lenses, through these different filters, then what is it doing to us? I don't think we have enough research done by people on the subject, because it's a very tricky thing, and it's somehow changing our own sense of identity for our own selves. So I think I connected to technology way back, and that's why I've been like making an conscious effort to utilize technology, not just in the process of my art making, but then like also using it to, let's say, execute the work as in the way it is seen, like LED screens, perhaps music videos. So you name it. My work has been spanning over a lot of tech oriented, you can say, execution approaches.
Yes, you anticipate my next question. What inspired you this leap, and how did you change from moving from canvas to code?
I wouldn't say it canvas to code. I would say it. I'm still doing both. They're both mediums. I think code is a different medium. Canvas is a different medium. But in the hand of an artist, they both are. It's on the same level, because I think an artist gives meaning to the work and why that medium is used. So we're living in the age where canvas and code and whatever these algorithms or paint or this Photoshop or any other software, these are all the tools. So what meaning you can bring while using those tools? Because there's a discussion that, okay, if I'm just doing one click and AI is generating the artwork for me, maybe in my style, maybe not in my style, but is it really art? So my answer, or my take on that is that it's more like, if everyone can make a picture, right, then we have to give it the bigger meaning, or we have to be the curator. If machine is the artist, then we have to be the curator of the art, because now that definition, or this dynamic between artist versus the curator, or you can say traditional curator, is changing globally. So how do we navigate that? I think it's more about that. It's not so much that I'm moving from canvas to code. It's more so about, if I'm doing a project where I'm maybe perhaps not working on canvases, working more on the digital side, then how do I bring it together? How do I make sense that, okay, technology was the best medium to perhaps say this idea, to perhaps express this idea? I think that's where the magic is.
So as far as I can see, coming from the traditional art, you're exploring basically how you can use technology to extend your creative voice. Is there something, for example, regarding where you using technology to amplify your creative voice? Is something happened that you find like unexpected, let's say in surprising directions, or do you see like limitations there, or still exploring that area? So how is your journey regarding that?
I think, yes, technology, we should not rely on technology. I'm a believer that it should be enhancing the workflow that we're having, like in the sense that it should bring some efficiency, it should help in the automation, whatever we are doing on the daily basis. And I know that we, especially as creative people who like to put their effort, their energy more so in the creative pursuits, like just in front of the canvas and just like painting, not doing anything else, and we have a lot of mundane tasks. So if like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, these the tools can help us maybe perhaps write emails, schedule some meetings, help us perhaps plan our next trip, or help with the travel scheduling, the CD and stuff. So if these tools can help us, and if it can help us create some templates, I think our lives become so much easier. The same 24 hours we can now divide and put for some creative work, rather than just writing long emails or replying to someone or creating communication or something else. Even if you're writing some project proposals, it takes forever. So now you're just doing a quick grammar check and there you have it, right? So we're doing something efficient with our time. So I think this is the one use
Mhm.
that I really find interesting, and I'm personally using AI for a lot of things. Second thing is that when we say technology, there's multiple technologies, from like shoot to the actual way the execution is done. I think technology has tremendously amplified the way we produce, the way we create and execute art. I think it has tremendously improved that. And also because I'm currently, as I said, directing music videos. So the third usage that I would say AI has really helped, or custom machine learning has really helped, is that if I'm, let's say, an image maker, and by image maker I mean painter, working with details, doing digital work, then it helps that AI can actually help you make those images move. So yeah, I can create like a moving image, with these
Mhm.
tools. So it really has, because how would I ever, do it without it? And it's so magical to see that your work is like having a different dimension. It is having movement. It is having life. So I've been like experimenting, as I said, a lot with these tools, and the results are amazing. Anyone who gives like 4 years and learn animation is now equal to someone who just has access to, let's say, Google VO3 or Runway ML or Luma Labs. I've been like using all these tools to work on my music videos, and I think the results speak for themselves, to be honest.
Well, I would be very interested, for example, if you could name like one of your favorite projects and then maybe share, the story behind it. Um, and of course, also, if you were sharing your experience, maybe the audience has some experience or journey maybe with your artwork. Or are you just creating something where, say, you want to express yourself and you then bring the audience basically, with your artwork?
So should I speak about something specific of a project that I did?
Yeah,
Yes.
something, one of your favorites, and also the story behind it.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, I mean, I can speak about Dark Skies Gaze Bats collection that I did in 2019. And at that time, as everyone knows, we were having COVID, very strange times. And at that time, I remember, our identity was kind of hijacked with these masks that everyone's supposed to wear. And suddenly, we were having this mask as our new identity, and we were judging everyone who wasn't wearing one, right? And people were having all sorts of like fashionable masks on, printed masks on. Some were having this shield, and everyone was like exploring their own identity with this new kind of prop that they're supposed to have, right? So at that time I got curious to how to bring this new information, given that I was also very stressed at that time, given the environment all around the world, and what we were facing. There was a lot of deaths happening, so there was definitely the dark side of things that I was personally facing as well. So my response to all these things, and of course, as you know, that art is almost like an escape. It brings you therapy. So I was just creating something while I was in my studio, and I remember exploring the metal for the first time. So I started like rearranging and manipulating metal, because at that time I couldn't go out. I wasn't having some, let's say, paints or something of that sort in my studio. And I was like, let's just do something, yeah, with my time. And at that time, I explored metal for the first time. So I had some forks, I had some crockery in my kitchen, and I remember just like turning them and trying to just hammer them down. And I found some strange, you can say, forms appearing. Later on, I remember fast forward 2 months, I took it to my workshop and I created the metal masks with this. An interesting thing with that was that these masks that I created, then through this LiDAR technology, which like 3D scanning with your phone, I took them to 3D software and then superimposed them on my digital artwork. So this was like a new technique where I was bringing the tangible material, or you can say recycling the old metal while bringing designs of these headgears and facial masks which were made out of metal or recycled metal or disposed metal. So I was recycling all of these things, and I personally love the aesthetics of it, because even the crockery, if you go and see the collection, the work that I did, even the crockery had some embossings and some designing on it, which in itself are the motifs of my culture, right, where I'm from. So Lahori culture, Punjabi culture, and I'm now in Karachi, but Lahore is a very cultural city where I'm originally from, where I was born. So some crockery was from there, and then turning those into beautiful masks and stuff. I think I really enjoyed that, and it brought some new dimension to my work, which was that you have to link the technology, which is the digital artwork, with this tangible form, which was also sustainable in a way because you're recycling this material. And at the end of the day, you're getting these designs which are not just talking about the times you're in, the COVID, because it was about the mask and hidden identity. At the same time, it was also about that if you actually saw, the masks from the phone screen or with the camera, these masks showed some parts of the face, but the camera wasn't able to recognize the facial features. And that was so interesting because I started thinking about the way we are scrutinized, right? Like our phone is connected to AI is connected to all the apps, and apps are all updating all the time. All of the things in our phones are now, integrated. AI is not just in the Instagram, it's not just on ChatGPT. AI is running your entire phone. It knows what you're thinking, it knows what you are saying. When you say a word, it starts to show you the ads on that, right? So everything is integrated. So my work, even at that time, was kind of rebelling that. So the mask that you wear, and I had some models who wore these masks, it wasn't able to recognize the facial features. So I really found that layer interesting, that it was showing the face, still the camera couldn't recognize. I was working on the idea of light pollution before I went into this project. And light pollution, as you know, it's all about that, you have to stay away from the white light. It should be the light that is good for your health, for your metabolism. Again, the medical part of me coming in, interested in human body and all of that. So light pollution, even with this project, it got connected because, I'm talking about the light of the phone and how we need to stay from it, how we are having
Um,
these, almost like masks or headgear around us as a protection, as a symbol of protection that is not just from, let's say, the environment, which was the physical condition of that time, COVID, from also the societal norms and what is expected of a woman who is a South Asian, who is from Pakistan, right? And then from this digital layer of these cameras, because cameras also scrutinize you. The data that is being collected of you personally is being sold to these big companies. So you are rebelling multiple layers through this mask, which is like recycled, and you're like it's part of you. So I personally really enjoyed it. It had my roots coming in, my personal experiences, why I created it. And I think it connected with audience even because they could relate to these multiple layers that I was trying to bring into my practice. Before that I was doing more of my painting, so this brought like a new layer to my work during COVID time. So I really enjoyed that project.
Your work has gone as far as the International Space Station. What did creating for space teach you about the universal language of art?
So my art that went to space, that was an entirely different project. I was working with a group of scientists. This was after these projects in 2021. I was working with, scientists from NASA and SpaceX, and, we were creating and building a metaverse for education and edutainment. And the entire idea was that different people can come together from all around the world. They can have this education from these mentors who are like space scientists, space visionaries, space biologists, spacesuit designers, and all these amazing people that we had in our network, and we like reconnected. So this was like a startup, and we exited that after 2 years because metaverse lost its hype. People started coming off of it. But then I made some connections, and through those connections, I was able to create a project that was about James Webb Space Telescope. At that time, it was being launched, and I documented the journey of the James Webb Space Telescope from the prototype to the final execution in one single artwork. And I collaborated with Dr. Tara Rutley, who is also a NASA scientist, now chief scientist of Blue Origin. So she created the voiceover for that artwork in specific, and that digital artwork with her voiceover, we actually sent to International Space Station as part of other projects that are visionary, that are talking about the future and the possibilities. Of course, there were a lot of other scientific projects, like there was another project about diabetes foot ulcer samples, and how, if these samples are taken to space, then because of the microgravity environment, it can create efficient results. And not many people know about that, because microgravity is the reason why a lot of things would behave differently than the earth, because on earth the chemicals behave differently, but on space it behaves differently. So a lot of visionary projects, and then some artworks which are inspirational, some music. So my art, my project became one of those projects for Project Malith 2. It was the name of the project that went to International Space Station along with other collaborators. So yeah, it was really surreal. It was really unreal moment, because obviously it's something is going to space where you're not able to go. So that's quite inspiring.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I was very curious about your project related to NASA and your space project. I also want to ask something, because I have a friend, and he basically shared his father is a sculptor. He actually shared the struggles his father had over a very long period of time, until he really got a master in sculpturing, and then of course it went to a different kind of story. But I would also like to hear from your side, because every creativity and also the challenges you have, every artist faces like up and downs, and sometimes they even doubt the journey. It takes a time until you find basically maybe your mastery in something, or maybe your identification or your style. Every artist has a specific journey regarding this. And what helped you stay like resilient, and what advice would you give to others facing creative challenges?
I think every journey or every industry in specific, I think it all has its own struggles. I don't think there is any industry that we can say that the career is so smooth, you don't have to struggle. There's no such thing. I think it's more so about that, whether you're in the right career, whether the skill is aligned with the ambition, and the ambition is aligned with your goals, and everything is there. It's a complete package, it's a complete cocktail, right? So if that is there, then you just have to believe, you just have to be patient, and keep at it. Because even now, when I've done so many different projects, like a project on like fashion, and then a project on masks, and then something on painting, I've explored a lot of mediums. Some people think that I'm crazy. Why am I not just doing the same thing because it sells, right? People actually told me, you know what, your paintings actually sell, so why don't you just make those kind of paintings? I was like, no, I am very true to what I feel is right, and I go with the flow, right? So you have to be patient, and you have to say that, okay, it's not so much about the money. Yes, money is important. We all have to earn one way or the other, but it's also more so about that you're being true to yourself. You don't regret doing what you're doing. So I think that is so important. And then if the struggle comes, which it will, then it won't bother you as much, because you're clear in your head why you're doing this. So then you won't feel that, okay, why was I in this, or why you start questioning, okay, why have I taken art? Because obviously artists are struggling, and I'm not seeing enough results. Your reason should be bigger than that, and that reason should be that this is your calling. You wouldn't be in any other place even if you were not earning a single penny. This is when you know that this career is for you. Otherwise, everything else is just a waste of time. So, now I'm coming back to my paintings, and doing music videos on the side. I don't regret any decision, because everything that I did, even I had some breaks in my career. I wasn't painting for entire year. I wasn't doing even one single painting. I was just working on maybe with space scientists. I was speaking to them. I was doing some networking. I was doing some podcasts. So even that kind of fed into my knowledge and who I am today. So now if I go back to my canvases, it's going to be with that different sensibility. Maybe the paintings are going to be much more informed. Maybe before I was just like painting for the sake of painting, if I kept on painting, right? So now if I go back to the canvases, it's going to be a different version of me. So I think this bit is very important, that people need to realize that no struggle is wasted. It's just like the part of the journey, the part of the plan, and you just have to reverse engineer that, and everything would make sense. That's how I like to talk to myself.
Yeah, what would we do without art? Imagine without music, without art, without art, all the paintings and creativity, we will not have even a culture. So we need to basically put our creativity here and share with everyone, which is then again inspiring others, and they create new things. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, Aisha, we know that creativity and innovation could come at specific time and moments. Have you already experienced an happy accident in your work? Something unplanned that sparked a breakthrough idea?
For me, the breakthrough moment was the project project, because when I went into that fellowship, I was like, I don't know, like this guy who is a sound engineer, and another one is like a coder, and what am I going to do with these two people? That too, towards the end of COVID. I remember I had this online fellowship. I was like, this seems like a waste of time, but this was exactly that. It was a happy accident, because when we were working together, I was working as a creative director and fusion tech artist, and there was a sound engineer guy who was collecting the sounds from all over the internet. I was giving the visuals to those sounds, and what I explored in that fellowship was that I learned the idea of working with emotions and colors for the first time. As I mentioned, I'm now doing an entire project on that same chain of thought. But that's when it started, because the idea was that we were associating this scientist Pluchik, whose research was on these 8 colors and emotions. So, like red is the color of anger, and blue is the color of sadness, and this kind of variations that this scientist did. So, what we did was we collected the data on the entire internet, especially Instagram, and we searched it by the hashtag. So, let's say hashtag happy. So, what kind of images are we getting? Are these yellow images? Are these pink images? So, we were categorizing them based on the colors. And this data then we superimposed on these bots, which were like an AR filter. And once these visuals were ready, because I was working on the creative or the costume or all the spicy part of the collection, and then you can actually see those in the prototype of it. Like if you're on Zoom or this kind of a video share, then if you are happy, because there's a code attached to it, because the coder guy did that, there's a code attached to it. So if you're like 20% happy, it will read your facial features. So it would say that, hey, Cyril, you seem a bit sad. You seem 10% sad, and you seem 40% shocked, 50% happy. So this kind of dynamics, it tells you based on your facial features, and then based on that reading that it gives you, now you have a very funky looking costume of a bot that appears on top of you. So this was the experiment that we did towards the end of COVID. I personally enjoyed it, and at first I was like, I'm not quite sure, where this is going, because I mean, I work as an artist, but how am I supposed to work with like this sound engineer and coder? But I really love the workflow. And when the work was created, people started to enjoy, like they were having this access to the code. And when they saw themselves and, the computer telling them the reading in the prototype, it was quite interesting. And I think these are the kind of projects even you get to see in MIT, because, students do something like this. And I think that's so exciting. So that brought like a new direction in my work. I became interested in colors, and I got more conscious about the use of colors and color palettes and what that means in my work.
Now, as we see, your creative journey and what you're achieving and what you like to do, I also want to ask you a question, because we have a lot of creatives we are working with in the US, Europe, and also in Japan. And of course, as you can see, you can generate images, videos, and so on. And therefore, I would also like to ask you, and you're also a little bit in that space, when you're like recognized, for pioneering work with AI and also emerging tech, you're experimenting also a lot in that area. Do you think AI can be creative as humans, or is it still remixing human, or do you think it can be really also creative by itself. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think these kind of questions. See, the thing about these questions is that we're oversimplifying it by saying it this way. I think AI is much more complicated, and we're just scratching the surface. If you speak about the potential of AI, as in of today, or maybe what it's supposed to do till like the end of next week, I can answer to this question. But because AI has many different elements and layers, which makes it AI, right? AI is not like a standalone object. It's not an intelligence that is just like existing outside of anything, but it's like based on how the big data, how the languages, how the custom machine learning, where the data is coming from, like who is sourcing this data. Is it ethical data? Is it not ethical? Is it biased? Is it talking about the indigenous people, or is it just talking about the majority of the people? A lot of different things are making up the AI, right? And the big part of that is data. So I think it's very complicated to answer it in a very simplified way. I would say yes, it's as similar to a human being and its creativity in certain domains. And by that I mean, let's say if you want to create a craft oriented thing from it. What is a craft? What is the difference between an artwork and a craft? Anyone can do craft and sell it on a street. A tourist would buy it, right? Because it's craft. But what makes that craft art, if you attach a meaning, a reason, or maybe the life of the artist, and suddenly if you put it in a museum, then people would perceive maybe perhaps the same artifact as an artwork. But perhaps that has the same craft on top of it. I think it's more so about the context around it. Similarly, with the AI, I think with AI we need to be more conscious. Yes, for sure, when we're using it, whether it's ethically sourced or not, whether that user is using video generation, image generation, text generation, voice generation, whatever you are using the AI for. I think it's important that you go and at least have the curiosity to go and read the blueprint or the white paper, whatever, that why this software was created, who is behind this, is it ethical, is it not. I think these reasons are important, but I think it's just a tool, just like any other creative tool, like Photoshop came, like paintbrushes came. It doesn't mean that, now the photographers are going to go away because AI is generating such amazing images. No, photographers have their own value because they require uh, a subject to come and experience a real life environment, and then they are captured. But AI doesn't do that. AI just generated out of thin air based on data. So I think both of these are tools. They have their different purposes. We can't compare them. We can't say that AI is creative just because it's able to create efficient results. We need to bring it meaning. I use AI regularly, but I'm conscious. It helps me brainstorm 20 ideas in like half an hour rather than I'm working with one. So yes, it's a creative tool. It's as creative as me or maybe more than me. But who is bringing it value? At the end of the day, whatever I'm creating, for it to be experienced, it's not to be experienced by robots, right? It is supposed to be experienced by human beings. And human beings prefer an emotion, a very raw emotion that is coming from another human being. A human being cannot relate to something that is solely done with AI. Yes, I can use AI to help me enhance my life and my skill set and what I want to say. But beyond that, I don't think so that we can say that, oh, now suddenly let's ask AI to make all our paintings for our, museums and stuff. No, we can't. It won't make sense in the history why these paintings exist. I think so.
I knew a designer, he's from New York. So basically he started with this sentence. He said, creativity is just bullshit. And then of course everybody was shocked. What does he mean with that? He's also a creative person. He's a pretty well known designer. And then he started explaining it. He said, people think, you're there, and then suddenly you have the spark in your brain, and then you immediately create something. And everybody, he said, this is not the process. He said the process is a lot of work, a lot of outputs, so much iterations you cannot imagine. It's very hard work until at the end you have something where you're happy with and satisfied with, or you have customers, and customers might say, okay, I really like this design. And he said nobody sees basically the process, all the iterations you have. And of course, you might have also like creative blockage and everything. Now, if I look back, what he was telling me, I'm really thinking AI gives us basically the chance to iterate faster, to produce faster, because we imagine we will lose a lot of time sometimes figuring out ways, and maybe we need to communicate with other people. Now AI can help us also changing the direction somewhere else. We can explore new paths also much faster. And then until we say, okay, this is now the direction. And from then on, I take over. So this is how I see how AI can really help us producing much better or making better art, making better designs. What do you think about that?
Yes, I agree with you on that. I think, even I saw a lot of paintings online that you see being created by this robo arm, right? Maybe you have seen this crazy robot arm like doing stuff with like paints. So in a way, people can say that, oh, now finally robots or AI, enhanced robots are now creating works of art that are like in paint, and it has that tangibility and very interesting textures and stuff. But still, I think it can create craft of it. It can function to create the craft of it, but how do you bring meaning to something? That's my only thing. Yes, if you want to mass produce something, we have been like printing for years now. We have been doing photography. What is a camera? Is camera not a robot? Camera is also a robot, right? And the printing press, when it came to being, before that people were doing hand drawn pamphlets, and then printing press came to being. So now people started to print in Axis. I said to them, see, robots are not coming now. Robots have existed when the printing press came. It came when the camera came, right? All these technologies, the form of robots. Now you're just seeing another form of robot, which is applicable more for say creating a mass production of painting, but doesn't mean that an artist who is doing something by hand and bringing it a new meaning with a different approach, with a different mindset while they're creating it, you can't actually compare them on the same level. They are not on the same level. Yes, they are both creative in their own right, but no, they are not equal by any definition.
So, Aisha, I would say if you could write a letter to your younger self, just starting out as an artist, what message would you want to share?
Yeah, I think this is something I haven't thought about, but most probably what I would say to my younger self would be to not worry so much, because I remember, when I was switching around different materials, and as I said, I was a very curious kid. Even my parents used to say, why can you not stick with one thing? And I remember I used to have this very experimental approach. So I think I would just say to myself that just don't worry too much about what people think, because the vision that I have, it's my vision, right? No one else can see that vision for me. So I have to be the first person to believe in that vision. And you have to cancel the noise of the world. And this is a very hard thing. I think people, even in their midlife, they get this crisis and they're not able to resolve this thing, which is that you can't cancel out the noise that is giving you a peer pressure. Now, that peer pressure can come from your family, your friends, even the people who think good of you. But you have to cancel it out. So I think I would say to my younger self to not listen to noise and just follow the vision that you have, and that's your biggest truth.
Good answer.
I also want to ask you because you are also a public figure. You share your art and you interact and also with people, also fans. Can you share some memorable moments, with your fans and also people who are collaborating with you, and giving you maybe feedback on your artwork, maybe seeing certain perspectives where you saw your artwork in a specific direction and they saw something, that kind of stuff. Can you share some?
Yes, for sure. I would love that. There are so many different lovely moments, especially the moments that I think are really close to my heart is when people experience my art. And I'm there in person, especially in galleries, because you don't get to have the same reaction. I mean, I have a good following, so I know a lot of people see my work, whether it's my pictures, whether it's my music videos or my creative work, my paintings, whatever. That kind of reactions are different, like when you comments online. But I think the feeling of being in a gallery space or any space where you get to speak to people after they see your work, after the experience of work, I think that is phenomenal, because I've had some of the most insanely interesting conversations, with people. They have all sorts of different interpretations of your work that you haven't thought about. For example, in my initial painting work that I created, so I remember having huge canvases, and they were like 8 foot tall paintings that I did was on the same idea that I spoke to you about, which was about the self as other, exploring self identity through the language of costumes and all of that. So I've created like a really bizarre looking, self-portraits of my own image being manipulated, and they're like huge. So you get that, feeling, seeing a very huge painting. If you see like something miniature, something very small, you don't get the same feeling. When you're seeing a big work of art, it just does something to you. So I remember, like, what this lady saying to me, that I loved, your thought process, but I don't know, I wouldn't want to hang this in my room. And it made me laugh because it was huge. It was my way. So, these kind of funny things. And then one lady, said to me that, how are you able to paint all of that? And, that's so bold of you, because you're thinking about your own face, and then thinking about beauty standards, and giving your own self a different kind of look with that bizarreness. So that's quite bold. And then you don't see, when you're working on your own work, you don't get to think about these things, because you're so in your own thoughts, you're so in your own process, that you don't realize how people are reading it. So once people read it, it brings new layers to it, because their reactions are also the reaction of the society. And that's the entire idea of the art, that art creates that dialogue. We get to experience something that makes us think, that makes us question what is numb for everyone else. So we kind of provoke something in them. And for me, art is not like a beautiful picture. It's not something that, oh, you need to hang it in your, lounge or somewhere. I think that is fine. That is beautiful in its own way, but art is not supposed to be beautiful. Art is supposed to some emotion in you. I think this is what art is.
That's actually a very good point. So therefore, I also want to ask you, you have this platform, Oshi Brownie. So you're celebrating basically South Asian identity, representation, and you bring your own voice into it. What does representation like this mean to you, and how can creators, for example, help build more inclusive spaces like that?
Yeah, so it's a platform, but kind of exited from that platform, and now it's like rebranded to my own name, which is Ayesha Mali Studio. Currently, what the idea for that is that whatever digital prints or digital artworks that I've designed so far, I've created a studio where we turn those artworks into some kind of a wearable art. Because again, coming from identity, and clothes and clothing or costume is a huge part of our identity and how we express ourselves. So some of the artworks are being put to these outfits, and in fact, we are also experimenting with this technique called simulation of textures, which is like, if something is metallic, you have to create its texture that feels real, like lifelike, and then you superimpose it on perhaps a different fabric, which is, let's say, silk or crepe, or some other fabric. But then when you see it from the far, you might see that, oh, why does it look so metallic? But it's not metallic. So because you have this limitation of weather, you can't wear something heavy all the time. So I'm working with 3D printing, 3D printed wearables, like these chest pieces, body wearable jewelry. I've already created masks and stuff. So now we're also like going into this new direction, which is like simulation of the textures for fabrics, and how the artwork that I already do can be turned into some shirts, some coats. I'm designing an entire range of blazers. In fact, I just had my fashion show a debut in Karachi, so it went really well. There was like around 20 pieces, and each one was around this idea of an expanding frame, because again, museum frames are vanishing, and now we're heading towards a time where screens are taking over. So the way we archive our memories has changed. We have frames anymore. So the idea of the collection was expanding frame, that the frame is expanding, or the frame of the mind needs to keep on expanding. And how do we then interpret or archive nostalgia, memories? How do we do that? We don't, because now the screen aesthetics glitch, or you can say this new world retro filtration is everywhere. So this collection actually talks about all of these different things: the memory, the past, and the future, and the technology coming together and creating these textures on the fabric. So this is a very new direction for my studio, but I've rebranded it with my own name. Previously it was Oshi Brownie, now it's Ayesha Mali Studio. And yeah, we're working with these kind of textural techniques.
I think we are coming most of it at the end. Sharaf, I think you got the last question to ask.
Yeah, I have a question. Basically, this is something what I see a lot also online, also, but also people I'm talking with. So far, I would also ask you, Aisha. So as we are, for example, what is your greatest hope and your greatest fear regarding the rise of AI and the technology in art?
To be honest, I don't have any fear from AI, because I'm very confident that if people know their own worth, then there is nothing to fear. If they are already confused, they don't know if they're in the right careers, if they're not happy in their careers, then obviously they're going to fear AI, because AI, the way it's being projected, the way it's being utilized, yes, its pace is very fast. The only thing that is, you can say, mildly fearful about AI is that if we are having going to have a lot of robots integrated with AI, not AI alone, but robots integrated with AI, then it's also having, you know, it's very dangerous, because if you see medically used, um I mean, I don't know if you've seen those videos, but like surgical wise, they're using these robo arms, and I mean, there is an actual human being that it's being doing it too. So anything can go wrong, right? Yes, it can do it efficiently as well, but we're not there yet. I mean, these robot arms are just machines, just like those sci-fi films that we see. Anything can go wrong, right? So I mean, that's for me is that is the only fear that I have, that if these things get commercialized so much. I mean, I, to be honest, envision, like, even for the medical users that I'm speaking about, the surgeons need to be working with these robo-arms. Perhaps maybe they can reconfirm that, okay, the usage that is being done, is it right? Like, are they finding the tumor or the cancer part or whatever that they're working on? Is it their right diagnosis or not? I mean, that usage I understand if AI is helping with that, right? But when they are handing everything over to AI, especially these Chinese videos, I mean, I fear that if this thing becomes commercialized, that I don't know, because this requires a lot of testing. We're not there yet. I think people are integrating AI with such speed that it hasn't gotten into the phase of testing as much, and it's just there being commercialized. Same goes for the softwares. No one is actually understanding what are the laws that can govern it. Do we even have these laws? People are talking about the intellectual property rights, like the way the singers and then their voice and their style is being stolen just like that. Yes, anyone can steal, but they can't steal the identity of the singer, right? So, and someone needs to come and say that, okay, this is the rule or law that governs it. But people who have access to data, they're just like using and bringing access to everyone, monetizing it for everyone. I think these are the things that are problematic. It's fearful, because the actual artist who has given their life for their legacy into any kind of art, whether they are singer or artist or whoever, I think there needs to be some royalty structure. There needs to be something for them. It shouldn't be just so easy how it is, without any precautions, without any structure. So this is the fearful side of it.
So you actually like the human touch, and you're saying we should not trust, the AI combination with robot like blindly. I'm also looking forward how this is all continuing. We are like the beginning of.
I think it's not even about trust. I think what I'm raising a question for all the owners of these softwares. I think they need to be more mindful. Yes, this is the
Uh,
start of AI, but if this thing needs to go on for like next 50 years, then someone has to come and govern it now. What
uh,
what they're planning to do in like maybe 5 years, they should be thinking about it now and then releasing these updates, right? They don't even know what this thing can do. Like deep fakes, it's already doing that, creating a different identity for politicians and for celebrities or whatnot. So this is dangerous.
yes.
Thank you, Ayesha, for sharing your journey. Your
And
vision and creativity give hope and inspiration to listeners everywhere. I would say if you could maybe say a last word for our viewers, what could it be?
the last words for viewers. I mean, I would say that be afraid about AI or whatever next thing that comes. I think the bigger plan is important. The alignment is important. You need to know what makes you happy, what you would want to do for next 10 years. I think this is something people forget because we are so distracted. So keep on the track, stay with your truth, and the rest will go away because it's all noise. So this is my message.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aisha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.